Hello, you incredible human being. So I was talking with Jimmy and he wanted me to come in and do an episode for you guys. And we talked about what are some of the coolest things that we could give you. And he said, dude, you got to talk about how do millionaires think differently to people who are not millionaires. For those of you who don't know me, I'm James Cant. I'm the owner of JCF Coaching. We're a strategic and performance coaching company. We pretty much help people make a shitload of money. We teach them exactly and we just make them money, right? We make their relationships better and we make their energy way better. We make them feel way more confident, charismatic within themselves. I've been in business for a long time. You know, in the last year, we did 252% growth. Plus I went from working 70 hours a week down to 20 hours a week. And we also we doubled our profit margins as well. So things are going pretty groovy for us over here. And so hopefully in this video, I'm going to be able to share with you a heap of stuff, which has really, really helped me. But at the same time, I kind of have like a unique insight because I coach a lot of people who are, millionaires and doing exceptionally well in business. I coach Jimmy for one. I coach a lot of people that you've probably heard of, guys like at Sales Sniper, Venture Suite, Nortec. Like there's a heap of different companies where I coach the executive teams and work with them. So yeah, I'm just going to share you a little bit of insight, both from me running a business, which is doing pretty well, and also from a lot of businesses, which are doing up to like $100 million a year. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw on that and I'm going to give you the 3 common mistakes I see in people who don't do well in business and never reach millionaire status. And then the 3 uncommon characteristics of people who are actually in the 0.01% of guys who actually end up extraordinarily successful. And there's one thing too here that I want to make a really clear distinguishment on. There's a lot of people who get to millionaire status but don't stay there. In my mind, I don't care how rich you are today. I care about how rich you're going to be for the rest of your life and for how many generations afterwards. So these things that I'm going to teach you, they're not just going to be about, make money quick, get rich quick. No, that's bullshit. This is going to be make money for the rest of your life and keep it for the rest of your life and teach your kids how to keep money for the rest of your life so that you set up everybody for generations to come, not just you, right? So it's not going to be like one of those stories where, you make $1 million on Bitcoin and then all of a sudden you go and blow it on cocaine and Ferraris, right? No, it's a different way of thinking. And this is going to be something which will set you up to be very, very wealthy forever. And I made a lot of these common mistakes. See, if I go back a couple of years ago now, I've always done pretty well in business. But there was a stage where we were making about 500 grand a year and things were pretty groovy, but I just couldn't grow. And I was just always capped at where I was. I always prided myself on my work ethic. See, I came up through bodybuilding. I was never talented. I was never overly smart. I was never overly genetically gifted. I never had anything. But the one thing that I always had was my work ethic. I knew I could always outwork everybody. And so in bodybuilding, I competed as a pro bodybuilder in IFBB. For those of you who know what it is, it's like the best federation in the world. And I competed at pretty much every single level. There was only one show that I didn't do, which was the Olympia, which is the best of the best. And there's a reason why I didn't get there. But so I was there. I was 20 years of age and I was winning and I was competing against people who were, roided up, who had been training for 10 years longer than me. I was competing against guys who had kids the same age as me, right? So I was doing pretty well, all because of my work ethic. But there's an area where I tapped out, right? Because there was a stage where I was training 6 hours a day. I was studying however many hours a day, and then I was working the rest, and I was trying to sleep 4 hours. And one of the things that I came into is like, well, my work harder attitude had a cap. Because there's only so much that you can do. There's only so much training. There's only so much dieting that you can actually recover from. You can't push the needle any farther. It's totally capped there and it has a ceiling. And this is one of the common beliefs that I see that holds us back in business, because I made this mistake in bodybuilding where I could only train 6 hours a day. I could only eat so many calories a day. Like there's only so much that I could do. And I never ended up getting any better. In fact, what actually ended up happening was I ended up burning out. I ended up exhausted, ended up giving myself bipolar and anxiety, and then also irritable bowel syndrome. And that was fucking shit, pun intended. And with that, I was stuck. I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't do anything. There was nothing that I could do to be better. And so pretty much I effectively went from being one of the best in the world to somebody who was an absolute nobody in a matter of months, because my whole work harder attitude totally burned me out, exhausted me, and left me with nothing. And that's really the first common belief that we see within people in business, is that we have to work harder. So if I go back to where I was a couple of years ago, I was making $500,000 a year. Things were going pretty well, but I was working like 80 hours a week. I was answering phone calls on a Sunday night at 7 p.m., right? Stupid, really, really dumb. And I was just working my ring off because the whole way I got to doing 500 grand a year was just working really, really hard. And so I thought, well, okay, well, if I want to, grow even more, I've just got to keep working really, really hard and work harder and harder and harder. And it's like that whole thing they tell you in school, right? If in school you work really hard and you study really well, you're going to get a great job, you're going to be successful in life and everything's going to work out for you. It's a fucking load of shit, right? It's not about how hard you work. It's about how much value you provide. And there's something really, really interesting that happens. Whenever we work, let's say you take me as an example, right? If I was working 60 hours per week to make $500,000 a year, in order to then get to $1 million, I'm going to have to work 120 hours a week. Now, can you see a problem with that? Because with that way of thinking where we are attaching our time to a dollar outcome, we instantly cap ourselves and there's a ceiling there. If you attach yourself to working 60, 70, 80 hours a week or seeing working more as the only way to increase your income, you have a ceiling that you will never, ever be able to break. And so what we need to do is we need to transform our thinking and we need to stop thinking about working harder. Instead, we need to be thinking about increasing the amount of value that we provide. The amount that you are paid is going to directly reflect the value that you provide to the marketplace, right? What I mean by this is if you can make somebody $1 million a year and it takes you 1 hour to do that, you could very reasonably charge $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 for that 1 hour, right? But if you are charging yourself out at $50 per hour, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to scale that. Can you see what I'm getting at here? We need to shift our thinking from being in a state where we are thinking about working harder instead to working in a more valuable manner. How can we provide more value to the people who want to work with us? Now, the second thing here, working harder and providing more value are actually inversely proportionate. That's what I mean by this is as you work harder, your ability to provide value goes down because here's what happens. It is very, very well known and it's very well studied that the first couple of hours of your day are the most productive of your day. And it is also well known that the first 25 minutes of any task that you're doing are the most productive minutes that you'll have. Now, when we start extending past that and we start spending hours and hours and hours working 10-hour, 12-hour, 14, 16-hour days, our ability to provide value actually goes down because we're not able to focus as well. Our energy isn't as good and we're not able to be on task and as creative as what we'd like to be. When we start working for much, much longer and working bigger hours, what ends up happening is our adrenaline starts going up because we start running low on energy. It's a normal response. Adrenaline goes up. Cortisol goes up and our IQ and our EQ goes down. So our ability to think and our ability to have interpersonal relationships goes down. Disallow us to create the highest level of value possible. Does that make sense? And you can probably know this is true, right? Because you probably experienced it. When do you do your best work? When do you have all of your genius ideas? Is it when you're on holidays and you're relaxed and you're calm and you come up with all these incredible things that you need to implement at work? Or is it when you're stressed as fuck after working an 80, 90 or 100-hour week, right? You get my drift. The harder we work, the less value we can provide in the long run, which in the end caps our ceiling. We need to make it so that we are not working harder. We are instead focused on creating more value in less time. The second thing, this is such a common one. I see this all the time. And I actually had this bad. The second thing is that a lot of people who will never reach millionaire status is they're very, very adverse to change. And what I mean by this is they don't want to experience change within themselves. They don't want to grow. They don't seek self-development. They don't think, how can I be better? What about me can I change? How can I improve things? What they want to do is they want to change everything around them instead. What we need to do is we need to look within. And I'll give an example of, and hopefully I'll illustrate this a little bit more and I'll use myself as an example, my former self. So back when I was, making $500K a year, I thought I was doing everything perfectly because, I was like 20 years of age and I was making 500 grand. That's pretty good, right? You think, thumbs up, you're having a crack. But what I did was I stayed the same, me personally. And there's this big thing that we need to recognize as business owners. Your business can only grow as much as you grow. You are the limit of your business's potential. You as a human being, your qualities, your traits, your leadership ability, your charisma, confidence, your ability to have energy, to perform, to focus. These are the things that actually limit your business. And so if we ourselves don't seek to change, if we don't seek to improve ourselves, if we are not totally critical on our performance in every single area of our life, we're going to hold ourselves back. And so back a few years ago now, I thought I was the bee's knees because I was crushing it. I was doing really well in business and I was making good money, more than everybody else that I knew. And I didn't want to get better. I didn't see a need to improve me. I didn't see a need to work on my marketing, to work on my sales, to work on my ability to relate to other people, to improve my energy, to improve my focus, to improve any of these things that make us better. I just thought, well, I'm already doing really well, so I'm just going to keep going this way. That is the death of a business. I think you can guess what actually happened after then is when I held that mindset and I attached to, I don't need to change, I don't need to be better, everything's already good. My business plateaued and then actually slightly went backwards. I was very, very fortunate. I had a really awesome mentorship team around me who pulled me out of that. But it sucked because I was working my ass off. I kept working harder and harder and harder. And because I wouldn't change, I couldn't create any more value. And because I couldn't create any more value, my income was capped. And because my income was capped, I was constantly stressed and I was always finding ways to try and do more. And I ended up being a hamster on a wheel, just going around and around and around in circles, all because I was adverse to change. If we are adverse to change and we do not actively seek change within us, how we can improve, how can we be better every single day in every single way, we're going to be very stuck. The third common belief that we have, which really ties into the earlier two, third common belief that people who will never reach millionaire status, let alone keep it, is ego. How many times have you seen somebody who's not doing terribly well in business tell you how well they're going? I had this just the other day. And this guy was struggling to get his business off the ground. And we're going to call him Chris. And Chris came to me and he said, mate, I want to get this thing going. I need to really make more money. This is what I'm going to do. And I started asking him some questions. I'm like, okay, well, who's your niche? Who's your avatar? Who are you selling this to? Like, why do they want it? What's their pain? What are their desires? All that sort of stuff. And going through and looking at it. And it became pretty apparent that he didn't really know who he was targeting. He had a heap of competitors who were way bigger than him, way more established. And every time I started to question, what's going on here? How are you going to be able to survive in this business when you're competing with fucking eBay? Chris would then go on and tell me about how good his business is. And when we go on and tell people how good our business is, how good I am, how good everything is, it doesn't allow us to improve or be better, right? Every single time we see somebody with ego, we see somebody who's about to fail, right? Whenever we have ego, we limit our self-development. We limit our ability to create more value, and we limit our ability to be successful in the end of the day. When we have high levels of ego, we are going to make our life infinitely harder. You've probably all seen people with massive ego before. They don't do particularly well, right? What we need to do instead is we need to be humble within ourselves and able to reflect openly and honestly with our shortcomings. And I know this is a very, very difficult thing because the reason why we have ego in the first place is because we have insecurity, because we have a fear of not being good enough, a fear of being rejected, or a fear of not living up to who people feel that we should be. And we feel like we have this identity that we need to protect. And it's very, very big in coaches. We work with a lot of people who are in like the mindset space and the healing space and helping people change their thoughts. And one of the funniest, most ironic things about people, I'll give mindset coaches as an example. The funniest thing about mindset coaches is that most of them have the fucking most atrocious mindsets that I've ever seen in my life. I've worked with a number of guys who are mindset coaches, and every single time, because they are a mindset coach, they believe that they cannot show vulnerability or show that they do not have a good mindset, because if they do, they would feel incongruent with what they're coaching. So instead, they have to project this image that their mindset is perfect when everything behind the scenes is shitting itself. The same thing with a lot of guys in business. in general. A lot of guys in business need to project that their life is absolutely perfect, even when they're stressed as fuck, their relationships are going down the gurgler, their health is absolutely atrocious. They need to project this idea that, no, I'm doing fine, and they won't let anybody in, because if they don't, then this shatters the whole facade of my life being perfect. And if we shatter that whole facade of my life being perfect, then we stop feeling good about ourselves. We're worried that customers won't want to work with us. We're worried friends won't respect us. Our wives won't like us as much. Our family won't respect us anymore. And we lose all these things. But here's the thing, right? That's all bullshit. Nobody's going to judge you for being honest about the problems that you have, right? Nobody's going to judge you for about the things that you're struggling with. Nobody cares about that. They're actually, well, if they do care, fuck them off. They're not worth having in your life, right? What we need to focus on is, how do we get better? Because when we have ego, we don't solve our problems. When we don't solve our problems, we can't create as much value. When we can't create as much value, then we do not make as much money. Can you see what I'm getting at here? So if we end up being like a Chris and putting up these brick walls around us and saying, no, my business is amazing, I'm perfect, my focus is great, my energy is great, my ability to think is great, and we just block ourselves up, we immediately kill our ability to grow. And when we kill our ability to grow, we become infinitely less successful. Does that make sense? That one killed me for years. And it was only when I actually started opening up to being humble and admitting that I have faults and admitting there are things which I'm not perfect in, that all of a sudden I grew at an exponential rate. It was huge. You guys probably know that, for those of you who know me, I spend about $300,000 per year on mentoring, right? I'm not fucking around with that. And the reason why I spend $300,000 a year is because there are many, many people out there. I've got 15 mentors at the moment, 15 different mentors for different areas of my life. And that's because 15 people are substantially better than me in things that I want to be really, really good at. I get coached and mentored to a very, very high level in everything, from sales and marketing all the way through down to doing my bloody jujitsu and yoga, right? I get a personal mentor for every single thing that I do, someone who's far better than me, who's going to tell me exactly how to get the result that I want to get in the shortest space of time. And it has made me infinitely more successful. And I guess I'm going to start with that one really on the ways where millionaires think differently. And this is one of the biggest things that I just said on one of the game changers for me in every single area of my life. And by the way, when you look at millionaires, right, have you noticed that they're really successful in not just one area of their life, but multiple areas too? Generally, when you have millionaires, you'll have guys who are like crushing it at business. They're doing quite well at home. And then on top of that too, they're like really healthy. They're shredded, jacked, like all that sort of stuff. They're really good at sport. They've had heaps of success. It's not just in one area that they're successful, but generally they're successful in multiple. I'll use Marcus Norton of Nortec. So Marcus runs a business called Nortec. They're a mining contracting company. When I met Marcus and started coaching him 4 years ago, he was stone broke. And now this year he's going to do about 80 million, something on that sort of level. Marcus is also an elite arm wrestler and shredded and jacked as fuck, right, at the same time. And if you look at Marcus and his history and everything he does, he succeeds absolutely everywhere. And the reason why we succeed, guys who are millionaires succeed, is because of this, because we stand on the shoulders of giants. A lot of guys going hand in hand with the ego, guys who will never be successful, they have huge amounts of ego and will tell you how fucking amazing they are. They'll talk about things like being self-made, right? I know a person and they're lovely, but this person has self-made tattooed on their hands, right? This person also has very, very substantial difficulties with achieving what they want to achieve in their business, in their relationships, and also in their health. Funny that, right? Because they want to do everything by themselves. Anyone who says, I want to do X, Y, Z by myself because I like the challenge is fucking stupid. Why would you make life harder than what it has to be? Play on easy mode. Go and stand on the shoulders of giants. I spend $300,000 a year on mentoring so that I can grow much faster in every single day in every single way, right? I want to be the best at anything that I do, so I go and pay a lot of money for a lot of people to help me do that, right? That's how a millionaire thinks. The second thing after this is guys who are millionaires work on what I call efficiency dials. It's not about how much work you can do. Working harder is dumb. Working smarter and more effectively is smart, right? So what we need to do is we need to work on these things I call efficiency dials. Efficiency dials are little things where you can turn them up and it amplifies our response. Think of it as like, instead of 1+1, which is like working for hours. If you work 40 hours a week, earning $50 an hour, you earn $2,000. If you work $80, you'll earn $4,000 a week. Does it make sense? So that's 1+1. What we're doing with efficiency dials is we're doing 1 times 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, so that we get an exponentially larger result on the end. Working on efficiency dials, I'm going to run you through a couple of them right now. These things are absolute game changers. The best efficiency dials that you can work on are, number one, optimizing and improving your energy. This is something that I'm continually investing in every single day, because if I improve my energy and I am 10% better, that means I can dramatically increase the output of my work. If I have way better focus, way better brain function, better levels of testosterone, lower cortisol, and lower stress hormones, my IQ and EQ will be substantially higher. My intellectual quotient and emotional quotient will be substantially higher, which allows me to come up with far better ideas, more efficient processes, better communication skills for the people around me, which then goes on and has a massive influence on our organization's ability to create value in the marketplace, which in turn allows us to make a lot more money. We need to work on these efficiency dials way, way harder. It is my belief that one of the biggest by the way, this is just a belief based on nothing. This is from coaching a shitload of people, from seeing a lot of people. My belief that one of the biggest things that holds business owners back is excessive amounts of stress. 9 in 10 businesses fail. We know that within like the first year. And then after that first year, between year 1 and year 5, 9 in 10 more fail. And then over the next 10 years, 9 in 10 more fail, right? It's a very, very low number of businesses that actually succeed. And I went and I studied this. And I thought, well, okay, we know that lots of businesses fail, but why? Why do they fail? What are the reasons for it? And so I went and I studied and I talked with a lot of people who had businesses that did really, really well and people who had businesses that failed. And the biggest difference between them was their ability to handle stress. How stressed is the business owner? And so the business owners who weren't failing, who were succeeding and going on to be very, very successful, all managed to utilize these efficiency dials so that they could work less, so that their cortisol was lower, their adrenaline was lower, which in turn optimized the efficiency dials again, which made them more and more effective. And it has this upward spiral. Whereas the guys who were not successful and eventually went bust, they were stressed, run down, tired, exhausted, bad brain function, anxiety, right? All these things, all these efficiency dials going backwards that were making things much, much harder. They had all of them ramped up, which meant they could provide less value, which meant they had to work harder, which meant they turned off the efficiency dials even more. And that was a downward spiral. And that was one of the biggest differences between people who are successful and not. So guys who are going to reach millionaire status and keep it always nail their efficiency dials. And then the next thing after that is the guys who are successful and who are millionaires seek self-change. They want to be better. Some of the most humble people that I know in my life are millionaires and billionaires. And some of the least humble people, in fact, all of the least humble people that I know are not. You see a commonality there? Anybody who is extremely successful will be humble to an extent and will be willing to grow and learn and become better. Yeah, there's definitely times where they're going to be very confident, and people who are confident are often mistaken for arrogant. But here's the difference. People who are millionaires and are willing to seek change and are very open for it and humble, they recognize that they have a problem. And then when they have a problem, they will go out and they'll seek the appropriate help to find that problem. Does that make sense? That's why we see so many guys who are highly successful doing multiple rounds of coaching, business coaching, personal coaching, development coaching. I've had guys who've come to me and said, James, I want you to fix like this one problem. They'll have like low energy, or maybe they won't be sleeping well, or their REM sleep won't be high enough. They'll want to fix that one problem, and they'll invest an ungodly amount of money into fixing that one problem because they recognize that when they fix that, their ability to provide value will be exponentially better, and they're going to make a shitload of money back on the return from there. Guys who are going to be successful always want to fix their problems. Guys who are going to be not successful are the ones who avoid fixing their problems. They're the ones who have ego. They're the ones who are resistant to change. They're the ones who don't want to fix or go through the effort or invest the money, the time, the energy into fixing these problems which are holding them back. And I want you to view it this way. The difference between seeking self-change and not, the difference between the guys who are common and the guys who are uncommon, the guys who are unable to reach millionaire status and the guys who are able to reach millionaire status is this. And I want you to imagine this metaphor. I want you to imagine that you have some chains to your back, right? Chains which are linked to an anchor, and that's dragging along the ground. And you've got to run a 100-meter race. The guys who are common and will never reach millionaire status, they'll say, okay, I got these chains on me, but I'm just going to trudge on forwards, right? And I'm just going to go and I'm going to beat the next guy because I'm just going to run faster. I'm going to work harder. I'm going to run forwards with these chains on the ground. And the guy who's standing next to him is going to think, I've got these fucking chains on my back. This isn't fun. This is difficult. I don't like running with chains on my back and an anchor in the ground. How do I get them off? Who do I need to call to get them off? Who's got a hacksaw? How do I get them off? And so there's two different thoughts. One person will just continue walking forward saying, I got these chains on my back, but I can do it. I'm strong. I'm better. I'm self-made, right? All these dumb ideas, and they'll keep going the hard way. Whereas the guy who's going to be successful and will ultimately win is the dude who is going to get the hacksaw to go and chop them off, who's going to go and phone a friend to go and get some help, or going to get some advice on how do I run better with chains so they can be exponentially more successful than the next guy. And every single time they win. Does that make sense? So on that note, guys, really there are three common beliefs that hold common people back. Number one, the belief that we need to work harder to be more successful. Number two, we're adverse to change. We don't seek self-development. Number three, ego. I don't want help. Right? I don't need this. I can do it by my own. Self-made, right? And there are three uncharacteristic thoughts and processes that people who are highly successful have. And that's number one, they work on their efficiency dials. Number two, they stand on the shoulders of giants. And then number three, they relentlessly seek change, and every single problem that they have, they fix it quickly, easily, and effectively. Does that make sense? Now, I hope this has helped you out, guys, because this was an absolute game changer for me. When I dropped my ego, I stopped working as hard. I started being much more effective and more efficient and utilizing the efficiency dials. I can't emphasize enough how important having those efficiency dials are, so you can dramatically increase your productivity. If you want to learn more about like what I've been talking about this and you found it helpful, you're more than welcome to get in contact. Depending on where you're going to watch this, it's going to depend where you can reach out to us. If you're just watching this like on a podcast or something, just type in James Cant. You're more than welcome to jump on, drop me a message. I'm always happy to help out a friend of Jimmy's. If you're watching on some of the other platforms, you may have a box somewhere where you can click, learn more or something like that. Just click on that box and you'll be able to put in your information. We'll get in touch with you and we'll see exactly what we can do to help you out. Okay. In terms of like what we do and how we work, we do performance and strategic coaching, and we work in the areas of increasing your ability to create money, increasing your enjoyment and fulfillment at work, and making sure that you're working in alignment so things are very, very easy, improving relationships and connections with partners and wives, and making it so that you are feeling absolutely freaking incredible every single day. High energy, high focus, high performance, and optimizing those efficiency dials. On that note, I'll leave you all to it. I hope this helped you out. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. And if you need any help or you want to be better and you don't want to be common, if you want to be like the guys who are uncommon, feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to help you. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you got something out of it and you want to learn more, click the link below or type in High Performance Conversations with James Cant, and you'll be able to check out all the podcasts that we've done. We cover a stack of different topics, everything from getting your mojo back, overcoming anxiety, self-doubt, self-esteem, and learning from some of the industries and some of the world's top performers in both business and in health. Look forward to having you on there.